I had a terrifying night last night. Oh, it's the first time that I've ever been out in the country that I can remember as, well, definitely as an adult. I don't even remember as a child, that I honestly had no idea really how to handle the situation. It was something I've never come across before or even considered. So I want to give you a little bit of history about the chickens and what we've done to keep them protected. Originally, we had this chicken run where it was movable, and it was just made out of PVC pipe and fence. Then we just kind of moved around the yard. Well, that worked out for a while until we started seeing predators. So we put a tarp over it. Well, then after I finished building the porch to the back of the house right there, that left one of these tents available because we were using a tent I got from a family member. It's cold, so my eyes are tearing up, so I apologize. So we got one of those tents from a family member. So we took that, it was on the porch. We took it and brought it out here after we got the porch roof put on. Well, then we thought it was such a good idea, we added on to it, and we got 2 more pretty cheap, and we were raising meat birds. Well, that kept them very protected. Well, at first, we only used chicken wire around it. And that was working. It worked fine. Dogs would come down, they couldn't get into it. I was pretty satisfied with it at first, so we just had the chicken wire. And you can see it doesn't even come all the way up. Then a dog came around, and one of the chickens got out, I think it was. I don't remember. I know there was oh no, it was a fox. That's what it was, a fox. And one of the little Americanas got scared and flew out over this. So the fox didn't go in, the chicken came out. Sure enough, the fox got that little baby chicken. So then we bought the gauged wire. I forget what that is, 14 gauge. We left the chicken wire there. That way the baby chickens couldn't come out, yet nothing could get in. Well, that's not true. Then we had a possum come up. This is when we had the meat birds. And so the meat bird was laying up against the chicken wire. So imagine that this is the ground here, and so its feathers were up against the chicken wire. A possum just came in, grabbed the feathers, the wing actually, pulled it off, and ripped off the wing and ripped the skin all the way down to its belly. Well, I decided to go ahead and dispose of that one. It was alive, but it was in a lot of pain, and I didn't want to eat it because I wasn't sure about rabies, and I didn't want to take the time to look it up. Well, come to find out, if it did have rabies, we could have cooked it out of it, but you know, it was one of the chickens. Well, then I bought a trail cam because I needed to figure out how bad our problem was. Oh boy, it was bad. So I got this little trail cam here. I've shut it off because I haven't had any more little animals around here. I haven't had any problems for a couple, 3 months. But you'll remember that we had possums and we had raccoons and armadillos. Well, when I realized how bad the situation was, I bought the little trap here. And you'll remember I was taking raccoons down to the conservation area just constantly. Now, before I go much further, I need to say this because every time I bring up the trap, people say you can't trap. In Missouri, you can trap, but you need to check your local ordinances. A lot of areas won't let you trap because if you relocate an animal, say you relocate a raccoon, and it's in the city, it's used to eating trash and scraps, and then you take it out to the wild, it won't know how to hunt. But if you relocate from a country area like here, oh man, that wind's cold. If you relocate from a country area like here to a country conservation area where they're used to hunting, they know how to hunt here, then it's okay if your law says it's okay. I want to be clear on this. My law says we can do that. Well, I relocated them next to a river source, lots of frogs, lots of water, so I'm sure they were fine. Ended up, I think I caught 6 raccoons. Well, then we had a possum. Actually, I think we had 2 possums. One just went away. Caught the other one though, and I relocated him. But the possum was the one that was causing the most damage. I figured raccoons would cause damage, but possums are pretty slick little animals. Problem is they're so good for your place. They keep ticks down. They'll eat ticks. They hunt ticks and they eat ticks. So if you got possums and you can figure out how to keep your possums away from your chickens, then you should keep them around. So I don't really want to get rid of the possums. Well, after I realized how to keep possums from doing this, what I did was I put this carpenter's mesh, I forget what they call it, it's just a mesh. I put that around. Now the possums and raccoons won't reach in there and grab a feather. So we didn't lose any more chickens to wildlife after I did that. I got flashing lights come on right at dusk. Then I know it's time for me to come down and shut the coop door right here. I shut it because the chickens go in right when those blinky lights come on. I'll show you the blinky light real quick. So these things come on, start blinking right here. They're solar powered. They'll start blinking. I look at the window, oh, they're on, and I can come down and I'll shut the door. Give them some water, some food. So now I know they're safe all night because there's nothing getting into this. I mean, it's metal. Other than the windows, I would think a bear would struggle to get into this. They might. If they get their claw into something, they might be able to, but they'd have a hard time ripping into it. So it would definitely give me a lot of notice if a bear was trying to get into that. I suppose a bear could turn it over. I mean, yeah, don't get me wrong, a bear could do it, but it would be a struggle for them. So other than a bear, I felt like I had all my problems resolved. Bears are starting to reintroduce in the state of Missouri. My entire life, I didn't know bears were even indigenous to Missouri. But I guess they were kind of ran extinct in the state and they're starting to come back. Well, this year was the first year that there was a bear season where you could hunt bear. So they're starting to come back in pretty good population. Well, I don't know how I'm going to deal with a bear if it ever shows up. Hopefully it would be scared of me and just run off. Well, last night I realized bear may not be the biggest problem I have. Although it could get into the coop. This thing I dealt with last night wouldn't be able to get in the coop, but I don't know. Okay, this is going to sound wimpy at first, but then let me explain. And this is not a fish story. Frenchie was acting all bad last night. I mean, he got into his, come on, boy, come on, come on. He wanted to fight. You could hear him. He was just mad as all get up. Frenchie is our rooster. You might be able to see him there. He's our little white guy right there, that rooster, white rooster. Right in front of him is Rue, right there jumping around him. So they're together walking down the hill. I could hear Rue, but Rue's not as loud as Frenchie. Frenchie is upset. So I look out the window and there he is, face to face with a bobcat. Now, before you say, oh, what's wrong with a bobcat? I've never seen a bobcat except at the zoo, and the one I saw was tiny. I mean, a little bigger than a house cat. I've been told about bobcats all the time, that if you go out in the woods, there are bobcats in the trees over your head. They're watching you. That's what I've always been told. But it's not a big deal because they're just so small. People raise them as pets. That I found out last night. People raise them as pets. A house cat, if they come across a stray or an abandoned bobcat kitten, a house cat will raise it. As I look through the window, the bobcat looks up at me, and I know it's a bobcat because it's got the bobcat features, except it's not the size of a bobcat. It made me actually question, is it a mountain lion or something like that? Although the face gave it away. I know what a bobcat looks like. So I was confused, and I know there's mountain lions in the area. Some up north from here, I know. But no, it was a bobcat. It was the biggest bobcat I could have imagined. It was the size of a black lab. It was huge. So this thing was as tall as my waist. He was down here at this corner, and and Frenchie was right here, right on the other side of the fence, just ready to fight. And this bobcat is trying to figure out what this is. Well, this thing isn't going to hold him back. If he'd have jumped up on this, he'd have been able to get through. I mean, something has ripped it already right here, so he could have gotten through that pretty easy. It's not designed to keep things that big out. I mean, he's bigger than a pit bull, because we had pit bulls down here and they weren't that big. So we looked it up this morning, and they get up to 50 inches tall or something like that. It's ridiculously tall. So this one was at least 3 feet tall, at least. So he was a monster. So when I got out onto the back porch, it got his attention and he ran off. I don't know what I'm going to do about him. Now, we looked up what we can do, and I'm not, of course, you know, people are going to say, well, just shoot it, just shoot it. I can't find any information on Conservation's website that I can shoot bobcats. They talk about bears, they talk about raccoons and possums and all the predator animals, even domesticated dogs. If a domesticated dog is harassing my chickens, but nothing on bobcats, so I'm not too sure it's legal. And I know a lot of people say, I don't care, I'd do it anyways. Well, yeah, but are you willing to lose ever being able to get another hunting license or being fined? Poaching, I mean, I can replace a chicken a lot cheaper than I can pay a fine. So Carolyn and I started looking into what we can do to keep this guy away. Now, earlier this year, I was telling people how I'm going to keep deer out of the corn garden. We're going to buy a radio, and it'll make noise and it'll keep the deer out of it. I've done that before. It works. Sure enough, they said that running a radio at dusk, they hunt primarily at dusk. So we're running a radio at night to keep the bobcats away. It might keep everything else away too, which would be fine with me. I'd like to have that advantage, but I'm not going to trap it, because they said if you trap it, it's legal to trap. You can trap a bobcat. You'd have to take it like 100 miles away, because it will find its way back. So I'm going to have to be extra vigilant for the next few days until I can get a radio. I'll probably order one offline and get an extension cord. So I hope I can inspire you to think quick on your feet when you're living your dream. Thanks for watching.